So good evening, everyone. It is October 11th. It's 6:26. Just so the record reflects, we were having some technical difficulty for people hearing us on Zoom and in the room, and everything's fixed now. So that's why we're starting a little late. So I apologize to everybody and thank you for your patience. With that said, I think we can first check to see, Patrick, has this meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Excellent. And I would take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Daniel?
Actually, sorry, Jessica, you want to make that motion?
Sure. I move that we approve the minutes. Oh, gosh. There's a lot of them, aren't there?
Yeah.
Why don't you do it, Daniel?
All right. I move to approve the minutes of September 20th, September 23rd, September 28th, and October 3rd, 2022.
Daniel has made a motion to approve the minutes of September 20th, September 23rd, September 28th, and October 3rd. Board members, any discussion? No. Seeing none, looking into the room and no public participation on it. In that case, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Daniel. We move to chair remarks. So I just have one remark this evening from our town clerk, Hillary Francis. So Election Day is coming up on Tuesday, November 8th at the American Legion. It's going to be, the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. All active registered voters were mailed a ballot by the state. If you have not received a ballot yet, you can call the town clerk's office at 802-251-8157 and speak to Hillary, and she'll be able to figure out what the issue is. I have great faith in her. You can return your ballot via mail, Dropbox, or at the town clerk's office. The Dropbox is located behind the municipal center and it's checked multiple times a day. So it's a secure way to drop your ballot off. You can also bring your completed ballot to the polls on the 8th and drop them off in a Dropbox there as well. All ballots must be received by 7 p.m. on Election Day. If you would prefer to vote in person at Election Day at the American Legion, you need to bring your mailed ballot with you. You can still vote if you don't have your mailed ballot, but you're going to have to do another step when you get there. So if you don't have your ballot with you, you should prepare for it to take a little bit longer to complete that additional step. And besides that, we'll see you at the polls. So we move on to manager's comments.
Thank you, sir. So just a couple of things this evening. First of all, a couple of reminders. I suspect that most everybody in Brattleboro is aware that the Brattleboro Fire Department is working with a consultant, goes by the name of AP Triton, and that they are working with the fire department to establish the feasibility of transitioning to an all BFT fire EMS service. One of the component pieces of that work is soliciting public input. There is a survey which can be found off the Brattleboro Fire Department's website. That survey is going to be open and taking public responses up until October 31st. I know it was down briefly a couple of days ago for a technical difficulty of some kind, but it's back up, and people can log in and share their thoughts on that survey from the Brattleboro Fire Department's webpage. Also, I wanted to highlight the fact that those consultants from AP Triton are going to be in town next week. They're going to be visiting with the Selectboard a week from tonight on the 18th at the Selectboard regular meeting at 6:15. And then the following night, on Wednesday, the 19th, they will actually be hosting a sort of community forum at the Brattleboro Fire Department at Central Station on Elliott Street. And that will be at 6 o'clock on the 19th. We do expect that we should see a rough draft of their report probably sometime in early November. And then AP Triton will be back in our community in December, likely early December, with a final report. And they'll be here at the select board meeting to deliver that report. And so we are moving forward. I just want to make sure everybody is aware of those dates and their opportunity to either learn a little bit more and to provide some input via the survey. The second item I wanted to touch base on was a little different. Like everybody at this table and certainly everybody in the room, I get a lot of email. And I got an email recently from a member of our community who's also a town meeting rep, and was asking about progress on the community safety report and the town's review of that report. And I provided that individual with an answer, but I thought that there's probably a broader audience interested in that answer. And so I wanted to share it with the rest of the board and also with the public who was in attendance here and at home. Since taking on the responsibilities of the interim town manager in June, the board has made it very, very clear to me that this is a priority for the town. I accept that and I respect that. I also wish to make sure that everybody understands in taking on this set of responsibilities, I am confronted by a range of responsibilities that are largely unfamiliar to me. And am doing so at the moment without an assistant town manager. And so there are certain capacity limits that I feel we're running into. As we work through the budget development process, and as we continue to work as a management team to keep the day-to-day business of the town moving forward, and as we work with the board to search for a new town manager, there are just certain things that frankly aren't progressing as quickly as any of us would like. I know that's not a satisfying answer, but I believe it's an honest answer. And so I wanted to convey that a little bit this evening. With that said, that doesn't mean nothing is happening. I know I was at a conference last week, learned a great deal about the Vermont Criminal Justice Council that I'm kind of interested in discussing with the chief. I know she and I will be meeting on this next week. She continues to get a better sense of the capabilities of her department and certainly in the community in which she is serving. So this work is progressing just more slowly than we would like. And we ask for your patience. And I think that's it for this evening.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Board members, select board comments, committee reports. Tim, anyone else? Jess, but I saw Tim's hand first.
Oh, okay. Lightning quick. Well, I promise this won't take long, even though I've written it down. Last week, the board chair and I had a little miscommunication, and I was in the mood to request something for tonight's agenda. I didn't make that deadline because there are deadlines even for us to get something on the agenda so that it can be properly warned for discussion. Just a little bit of background. I've been doing a lot of travels lately, and in those travels, interestingly, almost all of the towns that I've been visiting a lot of select boards and talking to a lot of people in towns. Many towns are grappling with their Arpa funds and how to go about deciding how to use their Arpa funds. Those discussions are going on a lot. Those discussions in most other towns are happening with an Arpa committee. So I would like to get something on the agenda where we can talk about Arpa, what our plans are going forward. I mainly am concerned because if we were to want to form an Arpa committee to advise the select board in some capacity, even if it were a limited capacity, it's possible the select board might want to dedicate funds for certain purposes and then have a certain amount open for discussion for a committee. That's how one town is approaching it. But that would take a little bit of setup time. And as Patrick just pointed out, we're very busy. This board's very busy with the town manager search right now. There's so much going on. But I wanted to just have a little space where we can start a brief discussion about our opinions, the five of us, about how we approach ARPA in the future. I have a couple of ideas for some immediate uses for ARPA funds. One of which is, you may have read about a sudden drop in funding for Meals on Wheels, which is directly affecting our seniors here in Brattleboro. They don't have an immediate way to make up a shortfall. It's a $45,000 shortfall, I think. So it's not a huge amount of money, but it strikes me as something very appropriate to use ARPA funds for, because I'm sure that the agencies that are responsible for putting this together are somehow still recovering from post-pandemic funding problems. But that's just sort of one idea. And if you remember, board members, back in March, I did also propose an idea for the ARPA funding to dedicate half of our ARPA funds to go towards housing with our housing action plan as a model. And so I think I'm going to use this opportunity as a board member to try to encourage us. I'm going to request that we put that on next week's agenda. It could be a limited discussion, but I think for moving our community's discussion about what to do with the ARPA funds forward in a timely way, if we were to decide we're going to do it with a community engagement process, we should get that ball rolling soon, at least discuss how to do it. So.
Cool.
I'll make a formal one if you'd like, or you can consider this the...
I think we'll just consider this the request. And you get to see the inner workings of the select board here. It's the agenda setting committee, which is the chair and the vice chair, will consider that for setting for the next week's agenda.
Yeah. And since this is just my comments, we're not going to talk about it now. I'm just throwing it out so that we can talk about it properly warned.
You got it. Thank you very much, Tim. Jess.
Thanks, Ian. Two things. The first thing is I just wanted to share with the public that we are having a wonderful process of searching for a new town manager, and that it is moving forward. And the difference this time around is that we have the wonderful support of both Patrick Moreland and Sally Nix helping, as well as Ellis Hankins, who we used during the last search. So as we get to meet folks and review folks, I'm just putting out there to the community that I'm interested. If you have any questions that you would like us to ask the candidates, or topics of conversation you think we should have, please reach out, email us, email me. Our contact information is on the brattleboro.org website. If you click on Selectboard, you can find our emails and phone numbers there. So I would really love to hear from folks about that. And then the other thing is that the Brattleboro Literary Festival starts in 2 days on the 13th, and it's a wonderful Brattleboro community tradition, and I hope you all get to go out and take a listen to some beautiful poetry or other readings this weekend.
Excellent. Thank you, Jess. Other board members or... Good. Great. And I'll take a moment. Yeah, this is my first meeting chairing with multiple board members remote. So I ask for everyone's patience as I try to navigate it as efficiently as possible. Okay, so we're going to move on to agenda item 6, which is public participation. So this is an opportunity for the public to speak to anything that's not a warned agenda item. You can also use this time to request that an item on the consent agenda be removed from the consent agenda and put at the end of the regularly warned agenda for discussion. So I'll just look to the room first, if someone wants to, because you guys have been waiting, if there's anyone would like to speak in public participation, just come on up to the mic. If not, I will go to Zoom. All right, see none. Who's our first?
My name is Audrey.
Audrey, great. For everyone participating in public participation, if you can just state your name and your where you're from for the record. That'd be great.
Sure. I'm Audrey Garfield. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm from Brattleboro. So I have some questions about the survey that the interim town manager referenced earlier and has been provided for the public to complete. I'm wondering about the purpose of the survey. So on the Brattleboro Fire Department, Brattleboro Town page, when you access the survey through the Brattleboro Fire Department, it's called an EMS, an Emergency Medical Services Survey. AP Triton, I think, is the name of the consultant. Calls it a strategic plan. And then the town manager referred to it as a feasibility for the transition. So I'm curious if someone on the select board can clarify the purpose of the survey.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I can take a initial go at it. I don't know if I can speak to the purpose of the survey because the survey is put out by AP Triton, so they may be better to answer that question. My understanding of the purpose of the AP Triton report is to study the feasibility of Brattleboro having a full fire EMS service as opposed to sort of a hybrid model as we currently have. And I guess to speak to it a little further, AP Triton, I'm trying to think if they told us or if the fire department told us. Someone told us that in other communities where AP Triton has done a survey or has done this service, they have done a survey or other community outreach to get feedback from the community as part of their process. So the purpose of the survey is to get the community feedback, as that's part of AP Triton's process in some of the communities that they've done this in. That's my understanding.
Yeah. Okay. So who can fill out the survey?
I would
somebody with access to the survey. Yeah. I mean,
right.
I don't know,
and so
we're limiting participation in that.
So someone who has no connection to the community is welcome to fill out the survey.
You know, Audrey, let me speak off the cuff here.
Sweet.
You know, I think Ian's description of how the survey fits in with the feasibility study that's underway is entirely accurate. Okay. And, you know, I don't quite know how the questions on the survey were decided upon. I'm presuming that the fire department and AP Triton worked on them together. We certainly didn't work on them.
Okay.
And I'm not sure whether the fire department and AP Triton have something in mind as like, you know, like, for example, we had a question from a community member the other day about, hey, why can't I fill out the survey? And not knowing too much about the inner workings of it, I was like, oh, well, maybe they just closed it because at some point they're going to need to close it and like process what's in it, right? Like you can't just leave it open forever. And I wonder whether these questions may well be better answered by Triton and BFD next week.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good point. And as the interim town manager indicated in his remarks, the survey is going to be open through the 31st of October. So,
right. So if I could add, the survey is really poorly crafted. And I would encourage folks who want to fill out the survey now to use the comment boxes to either answer the questions that are being asked on the survey or to use those comment boxes to offer their thoughts on anything related to the Brattleboro Fire Department, the transition to the Brattleboro Fire Department providing emergency medical services. So for instance, if somebody doesn't want the Brattleboro Fire Department to transition to being the EMS provider, they could write that in any of the comment boxes, whether the question is directly related to that or not. If someone has an objection to the way the process has been carried out by the select board, I think that would be a great place for people to input that as well. And I would say, because the survey is so poorly crafted, that might call into question, and I think it should, the quality of the report by the consultant. So the other question I have, I'm a little rusty on this. Where would I find information about the RFP process for securing the consulting firm and what we're paying them?
For the payment would be in the minutes and backup material in the meeting where we
accepted the
contract.
The contract. Okay. And what about the RFP process?
I think I'd have to direct that to Patrick for information on the RFP process, or what the process was for retaining the.
Yeah. What was the RFP process, Patrick, please?
Yeah, I am frankly not able to answer that question at this time. I don't recall.
Well, was it a public RFP?
I don't know. What I can tell you is that I can look into that and talk to the chief, and we can get an answer out.
That would be great. Yeah, I'd like to know if the RFP was it was public, and I'm assuming it was, since it's since the taxpayers are paying for it. And so, you know, it's the other thing I want to say about the survey is that it's my understanding that internally there are folks who are afraid to speak out against the process, against this transition, for fear of backlash. And so it might not have been the board's intention, but through the process, or the lack of the process, it was handled in a ham-handed way. And so the board has created this fear and secrecy around this process. And that is antithetical to democracy, right? Like, democracy needs sunshine, right? And so I guess I would ask if there's anyone on the board who has reservations about this process in any way, and is willing to break ranks to slow down the speeding train and to speak on behalf of the community, that would be much appreciated at any point.
Okay. Thank you very much, Audrey. Did board members want to respond anymore? Or
I don't have a response.
I also I am happy to, you know, answer a couple of the direct questions, because it's an important thing for the community and then people are curious about these things. But I do try to keep the public comment to kind of a limited amount of back and forth, because it's not a warned item and it's not something that people knew is going to be discussed. So if you want to speak on it, you can speak briefly, but then
I mean, this actually isn't even really a response to Audrey specifically. This is like, just to put a real fine point on it, AP Triton will be in town next week. They will be hosting a public meeting with the fire department next Wednesday at 6 p.m. And that meeting will be accessible, I'm assuming, both in person and on Zoom, Patrick?
Yes, sir.
So please participate then. These questions about, you know, how the fire department requested, you know, proposals will be answered in full then. We could probably find an answer in the interim. But I think, like Audrey, your questions are reasonable. And I encourage you to continue to participate in that process. And if you want to get a cup of coffee sometime and talk about it, more than happy to do that. All of our public statements, you know, have been made in public meetings about why we feel this is something that we're curious about moving forward with. And we will move forward at whatever speed is appropriate to prioritize the safety of the people of the town.
And I think there's lots of disagreement about that, Patrick, but I appreciate you, you know, I appreciate those comments.
Yep. All right. Did you want to speak to Tim? Or?
Yeah, just because, well, I feel like the trade is not speeding at all. That there's a very deliberate process, and this is just one very small part of it. Concerning the survey, I don't actually, at this point, I'm not interested in what the survey said or how it's operated, because I feel like I'm going to get all that information all together, and then I'm going to evaluate what the survey is telling me. the survey is just one very small part to me of the overall decisions that this community is going to make about this. Again, I think the train is plodding along now, and it's going to be very democratic, the process we're going to have. And I haven't even looked at the survey because I didn't want to insert my own answers to somehow skew it in that way, or indeed skew the process of me evaluating whether this survey will have any, import for our decision making. So it's just a thing. I don't think if it was inartfully or poorly constructed, I'll be the first to point that out.
Okay.
Oh, just one more.
I'm gonna move on. Sorry, Audrey. We have a long meeting ahead, and we've had plenty of time on this issue. So I'm gonna move to the next person in the room. If there's anyone. No, if Audrey's the only person who has public comment, then we can hear her. We can hear her other comment. I thought there was going to be a lot of public comment. Oh. So let's bring her back up. If there is before Bob.
Is Bob's hand up?
It is. Okay.
Gotta get him back to class.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. I'm looking at a room full of people here, and I thought that a lot of people had public comment, but it seems like there isn't. So if you want to just make your last point.
So I just want to be clear what Tim said, that the community is being asked for input in this survey, but this survey may in no way be part of your decision-making process.
No, that's not what I said.
That is what you said.
No.
You said if we take the survey into consideration at all in our decision-making process. I just wanted to be clear that that's what I heard.
That's certainly, I don't know how much weight. I think I was speaking in I terms, but maybe I said we. We'll have to go back to the tape. But I don't know how much weight I personally will be giving the AP Triton survey because I'm not familiar with it yet. I plan to make myself familiar with it, and then I'll evaluate whether it's worthwhile as part of the entire process.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We've got no one in the room, so the next step is Bob. Or not? Right.
There you go.
Hey, Bob.
I think I'm here.
Yep, we can hear you.
I think you can see me. So just to follow up on that a little bit, this survey is the major way that the community will be able to give their opinion with respect to this issue. So I'm a little taken aback by statements that are saying, we don't know how much weight we'll actually give to the survey in the process. So that's just a comment with respect to that. The other day, and I think the board knows this, I sent an email to Chief Howard because someone who was trying to access the survey found out that it wasn't working. And there was some chatter on social media that it wasn't working. So Chief Howard did confirm that there was a glitch. Now, we have no idea what the glitch was. It was not on the part of SurveyMonkey. They were working. Their servers were working. So the glitch was probably with AP Triton, but we don't know that. And we would like to know what the glitch was and why the survey was down. Because I think it's important to know that if people try to access a survey where you're saying that you want their input and they can't access it, they may not try to access it again. But the fact that they weren't able to access it is going to have a chilling effect on their input and their participation in this process. Almost as much as saying that you're not too sure how much weight you'll give that participation. So that's an important piece. So you may want to extend the deadline of October 31st to get more input from the community. You may wish to publish this a little bit more broadly. You may wish to emphasize the fact that it was down for a period of time and is now working again. It's also not clear. There was a question raised about who can take the survey. And I'm not too sure that the answer was that sure. The first question in the survey asks whether you're a resident of the town of Brattleboro only, a business owner and resident, a business owner only within Brattleboro, residents outside of Brattleboro, and employment within, which seems to be duplicative a bit, unknown or uncertain, which seems to be odd, none of the above, which seems to be really odd, and then other and comments. So in terms of how that question was structured, I would come away with two things. One, it really doesn't matter where you live. You can take this survey. You can be even uncertain as to where you live and take the survey. That is really weird, but that is apparently what the question states. So I leave it to you to decide whether that question was artfully drawn or not. But I think my takeaway from the question is that anyone can take this survey. Now, we had a specific comment with respect to question number 2. And question number 2, I won't read it to you, but it says, check yes, check all that apply. This one is important. And someone raised the issue that when she tried or when they tried to follow the instructions, they're not able to do that because you can only check one. I raised that question in an email.
I have a question. Can you shut the fuck up, you bald ass bitch? Yeah, shut the fuck up. Being funny as fuck, dumbass.
Sorry, Bob. That's a
okay.
Not us, Bob.
Not us. So can you just pause for a second, Bob?
Sure.
Thank you. So that's noted, and we should take note and make sure that the question 2 issue is communicated to AP Triton so that it can be corrected.
That was in my email.
Okay. So then in that case, if it's been communicated, then we'll just make sure that it's followed up on.
It has not been responded to. So I could not advise the person what to do.
Okay.
Well, he did it. So I think we've covered, it's not our survey.
Yeah, I think we can make sure to have that information conveyed to AP Triton because it's their survey and make sure that it's corrected. And then as far as the issue being down, you can ask AP Triton when they're here next week about the technical issue. But I would just communicate right now that the survey is up and that you can take it currently, as far as I'm aware. So was there anything else, Bob?
Okay. That would be it, unless you have a contact with AP Triton.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Keep a hand on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there an issue with people being able to unmute themselves or?
Not usually. There's been a couple of questionable names. I'm wondering if I should just not let people in.
That speaks to Bob's point about access.
Right.
Okay. To respond again?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So I just want to say that some of what Bob raises about the second question, and the entirety of what Bob raises about the second question's functionality in that survey. Thank you for letting us know. And I'm assuming that will be an easy fix.
Stuck in the toaster.
Fun. It's been a while since we've had this.
Yeah.
And then,
it burns.
a point that you were making, Bob, before that was that this survey is the principal way in which members of the community can voice their opinion about whether the town ought to do this or not. I would say it's an avenue, but I would say that your comment here is as well heard as an entry on this survey. And the survey is not the only way that members of the community can speak to policy decisions made by this board, right? We have open public meetings. We have the ability to, petition things. You have access to your board members and your town government, year round. And so I see this survey as a piece of this feasibility study. And I think I'm going to help Tim out a little bit and say that, the question is it feasible for Brattleboro Fire to have EMS services housed within that department? That's really the question that I'm looking to be answered by this study. And this survey, I think, is kind of almost like a parallel, conversation, right? The survey is sort of asking a little bit about your experiences with fire and also EMS services in this community. And I think that what Audrey and Bob are both speaking to is, their opinion as to whether it's something that is desirable, right? And desirable and feasible are different things. Certainly, we can take them into consideration, but I'm looking for, as a board member with responsibility for a policy decision, good information that helps me feel confident that I can make an informed, sound policy decision that will be good for the people of the town. And I will certainly consider all opinions voiced in the survey, but principally I'm looking for information about the feasibility of a transition to an entirely municipal EMS service.
Okay. So, as this, again, is not a warned item, and we venture far outside of what I feel is comfortable as public participation from the board as well here. So we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. So that's going to be, if you want to take down Mr. Ozer, Jessica, please. So that's going to be the consent agenda. So as I attempted in our last meeting to just move through the consent agenda without speaking to any of the items, and the board revolted against me. Patrick, can you speak briefly to the items on the consent agenda?
Sure. There are 5 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first one is to reappoint Zoning Administrator Brian Bannon as the Deputy Health Officer. The second one is to authorize the purchase of sand for this coming winter from Northeast Paving at a price of $13.25 per cubic yard. The third is to authorize a replacement purchase of utility vehicle 101 in the amount of $28,145. Fourth one is to accept and appropriate a grant from the Vermont Community Development Program in support of new housing at the 47 Flat Street location. The grant's in the amount of $542,920. And to authorize the town manager to execute the grant agreement and any other documents necessary in the performance of the grant-funded activities. And then finally, presented just for public information is a potential schedule for the fiscal 24 budget meeting. So each of the departments has been given a date and time, and there's a sequence of meetings that the staff is proposing for the fiscal 24 budget schedule.
Great. Thank you very much, Patrick. Board members, any discussion?
Actually, I do have a point of discussion.
There's no discussion, just if you want to pull an item.
Well, I think I have to pull an item just because I have to ask one question.
Great.
Which item would you
like to pull?
The final item.
Great. All right. So Tim would like to pull consent agenda item 7E, which is the FY24 budget schedule.
Just briefly.
So we'll put it at the end of the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
So that's going to now be for viewers at home and in the room. That's going to be new business agenda item A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
And it won't be that exciting, the discussion.
No, but that's how I'm happy to see it work.
I mean, if they were tempted to hang on all that time just to hear me.
Okay, in that case, board members, I would entertain a motion.
Got one.
Liz or Jess? Jess?
I move that we accept the consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
Jess has made a motion to approve the consent agenda items A, B, C, and D. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, Jess, I take another motion.
Ooh, I move that we convene as liquor commissioners.
Jess has moved that we convene as liquor commissioners. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. We have agenda item 8A, which is the Epsilon Spires entertainment license. If we've got a representative from Epsilon Spires, if you want to come up to the mic, and Patrick, you're going to give us a brief introduction here.
Yeah, super brief introduction. Epsilon Spires at 190 Main Street is seeking an entertainment license. There has been a wide variety of entertainment options in the last couple of years at Epsilon Spires. It recently came to the town's attention that we hadn't issued an entertainment license for these sorts of things. And so it's before you this evening to authorize the continued good entertainment that occurs at Epsilon Spires. This application has been reviewed by the police department, the fire department, the planning department, and the town manager's office, and we all recommend your approval.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Have anything further you want to add?
Well, we've been, operating since 2019 and moving some of our programming outside during the pandemic. We host a lot of, ambient experimental concerts, art exhibitions, films with director Q&As, quite a variety of entertainment, but also offer our space for rent from outside groups, including the literary festival this weekend. So it's a versatile space, and we hope we can continue to offer our programming to the community and to visitors.
Excellent. Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments?
I don't have any.
I guess I have a
Danny?
question.
Yeah.
So this sort of fell through the cracks. Is that what happened? It should have been renewed. It should have come up for renewal and didn't, or it never went in the first.
One has not been applied for previously.
Got it.
So entertainment has been provided at that location.
Unlicensed.
Unpermitted.
I went to some of it. I participated. Oh my God.
My goodness.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah.
Let's hope that doesn't happen too many times again.
Entertainment?
No, the unpermitted entertainment.
Got it.
Yeah, I didn't realize I needed one.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not criticizing you. I'm sort of pointing at the town's processes.
Excellent.
In a friendly way.
Yes.
Cheers.
You won't judge.
Yeah, and I'll just take a moment to thank Epsilon for hosting community events too. You guys had the debate there last week, and
Liz has a hand up.
yeah, that's a great service that you provide for us in the community. Liz.
I just wanted to mention that it was easily overlooked item because it's not associated with the liquor license, which is the more common venue for having entertainment and liquor. So I think it's understandable that this item slipped through the crack.
All right. I don't see any community hands in Zoom, or if there's anyone in the room who'd like to speak. Don't see any. In that case, board, I'd look for a motion. Tim?
I will make a motion to approve an annual entertainment license for Epsilon Spires located at 190 Main Street in Brattleboro.
Tim has made a motion to approve an annual entertainment license for Epsilon Spires located at 190 Main Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you so much.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We move on to agenda item 8B, which is the Brattleboro third class liquor license. And I don't know if we have representatives from the Brattleboro here. Oh, on Zoom. Excellent. Hello. Patrick, do you want to give us a brief introduction?
Sure. The board will recall that it was in August that the owners of the Brattleboro came before the board seeking a first-class liquor license, which they were granted. At the time, due to a bit of a paperwork error, it looks like they were also interested in a third-class liquor license, but the paperwork didn't specify that. So we are bringing back this application before the board. It's the same application that was submitted prior.
Oh, okay.
They're seeking a third-class liquor license. It's been reviewed by staff and we recommend approval.
Okay. Board, any questions or comments for Patrick or
Jed Tinty?
Jed Tinty? Sorry. It says the Brattleboro. That's why I was looking at your little name tag. Did you want to speak at all to it?
Let me
nope, it was probably on my error with the amount of things going on here trying to open. So I apologize that we have to come back before the board to request that.
No worries. Daniel?
I just want to double check. So there's like a checkbox thing. And so first class was checked on the original. And now there's like been an amendment to that application and the third class one has been checked because in the backup material, it's still on the application
because we didn't require them to fill it out again.
Okay. I mean, but it's all been taken care of.
Correct.
Pending
being
correct. Pending the board's authorization, they will be granted a third-class liquor license.
Okay. Very good.
Consider it virtually checked.
Very good. I'm curious to hear from Chad how it's going because they hadn't opened at the time when we spoke with them last, and I'm presuming but now they have.
We have, almost a month, and it's been very busy, and we are enjoying what we're doing and look forward to many years of doing this.
Great.
Excellent. Yeah, good time of year to open.
Yes.
No wonder you're busy.
Liz or Jess, just looking. Let's see. Nope. Okay. Chad, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board, I'd look for a motion.
No.
All right. I guess we'll carry the burden of motions in the room. Liz.
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 Yeah.
I move to approve a third-class liquor license for the Brattleboro located at 770 South Street.
Liz has made a motion to approve a third-class liquor license for the Brattleboro located at 77 South Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Right. We move on to, actually, I'll take a motion. Yes, Liz.
I move to adjourn as liquor commissioners.
Liz has moved that we adjourn as liquor commissioners. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. We move on to new business. Agenda item 9A, which is the SBAP loan to WR Metal Arts to authorize a $37,500 loan. Patrick?
Yes, sir. So, the board this evening is asked to authorize a loan from the town's revolving loan fund in the amount of $37,500 to WR Metal Arts.
Do you have representatives here? Yeah, you guys want to come on with two of you? You want to get the special chair?
Sure. So I would just wish to inform the board that the SBAP committee met, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and reviewed the application and are recommending it for the board's approval. And just to remind everybody who's on the SBAP committee, there is the town manager, the finance director, the town accountant, the executive director for the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, our very own Jess Gelter, and Debbie Boyle, who is a local commercial loan officer. And so we've reviewed the application and we recommend your approval.
Check what that can be.
I just want to make sure BCTV is good to go. We're good? Okay, great. Well, I actually, I'm going to give Jess, I'm going to give you an opportunity if you want to speak for a moment as our select board representative on the committee to this application before we turn it over.
Sure. This was great. This was my first loan committee meeting, the first application we've gotten since I've sat on that committee. It was very exciting to hear from a local business who is going to be doing some really cool things. And I hope these brought stories and things to share. But it was really exciting to see how the committee worked and processed the application, determined the amount based on what the policies are for this loan fund. And $37,500 was the amount that we decided was appropriate according to the policies that we have, although they were asking for more. They are getting loans from other sources as well, which was very exciting to hear, both BDCC and I think another source. And then also something that got the committee really excited was the idea that the purchase of the equipment that they're looking to get means a full expansion of their business into a whole new possible income stream for what they're doing, which means more jobs, more money in Brattleboro. I think the whole committee was really excited about the possibilities for this business with this fund. So,
great. Thank you, Jess. I really appreciate that. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your business and about the application, I think the board would be really happy to hear from you.
Awesome. Great pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm Will.
Hi, Will.
I'm Kristen.
And we are both a part of WR Metal Arts. I'm the owner and founder of it, and Kristen is our amazing studio manager who helps me ship and photograph and do many things here in our Vermont studio. So yeah, I guess I started WR Metal Arts 7 years ago when I moved here to Vermont. And it's been a lovely journey since then. But the more, and we do like boutique and custom jewelry mostly. And we've transitioned to e-commerce right before the pandemic, which turned out a very good decision at the time. But since then, we've been continuing to try to push or continue to reevaluate our values for the business. This is a very value-driven company. And with that, what we've discovered is, I guess, how kind of challenging gold mining is and how detrimental the industry overall can be at times. So gold mining is the #1 polluter of mercury in the world. And it also contributes to huge deforestations all over the world. And one kind of issue I see is that a lot of people or a lot of folks in the industry turn towards recycled gold, which is we're taught that recycle is a very good thing, which it is. The issue or the confusing part with gold is that people have been recycling gold for thousands of years and no one throws away gold usually. So it's kind of a little bit of greenwashing. And so often, like, we do use recycled gold in our materials, but we also reuse any gold we have. So basically, to better put our values into practice, we are focusing on positive mining of gold, because also by recycling, you're not reducing the need for new material being mined. So basically, we want to shift our practices to positive mining and supporting that. But the industry does not have much infrastructure for that. They've kind of shifted to recycle because it's easy to market. So we're asking for help to finance this 3D printer, which would allow us to cast our designs in-house instead of shipping those out to bigger casting facilities. It also allows us to have more freedom of what material we cast in-house, so we can source directly from mine and create alloys from those mines. So we know we're starting to source now through Fair Mind, which is a organization that has very transparent models for gold sourcing, and also does not, part of their certification or a branch of it, there's no mercury in the mining process, which is awesome. But we can also tell what gold is coming from what mine, and we're able to alloy that and use in our designs. The exciting part is the more we do this, we also source Fair Mind silver, which no one else has sourced in the US at this time, because due to expense, but a lot of people are looking for it. So we're able to offer new alloys to people that is not available. It's like new to market and not available elsewhere. So we've actually had, just over the past couple of weeks, we've kind of announced this and started talking about it more. A number of other designers from the West Coast, from Chicago, reaching out, asking for help casting their designs, because none of the larger casting facilities are offering it. say want to stay within recycled metals. So it's exciting to kind of have more positive mining initiatives and be able to have the freedom to cast in that material.
Wow. Excellent. Thank you.
Questions as well.
Yeah. Board members, questions, comments?
I'm curious how large the 3D printer you're going for is.
Great question. It's like 200 or 300 pounds and like yay big.
Okay.
On
you're dealing mostly with jewelry, so it's not.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be giant.
Yeah, not giant. And what's kind of cool is a lot of the other larger companies are actually getting rid of their older 3D printers and buying this model as well. Because many 3D printers cast or print in resin, which has a lot of issues with the casting process. But this printer will cast directly in wax, which as jewelers, we have lots of we're trained in working with wax, and we do a lot of wax casting already. So a lot of our operations can stay as is, which is the exciting part. So we don't have to change operations and we can cast everything in-house.
Nice.
Just faster and more accurate. So.
Is the full printer 125? Is that?
No, the full printer is like 54,000.
Okay.
700. The original ask for the larger amount was more for with how much work I'm expecting this to produce. I'm anticipating that we will need to hire multiple people. Definitely a metalsmith right off, or like soon to help cast, and then also like marketing and admin staff to help, because the challenge with super ethical and traceable gold is every time we get like we might buy an ounce of gold from Colombia direct from mine, we mark that gold and have a traceability code, and then from that, as we alloy it, every alloy from that will be traced so we can track where that comes from.
Wow. And
all the materials within it. But so that causes a lot more admin work.
Yeah.
And tracking, and then we upload that to the Fairmine portal. So any designer who is buying that gold from us, we record how much weight and how much we sold to them, and then they track it on their end as well. So it's all like cross tracked.
And the Fairmine portal, is that also helping with marketing? Like more people can.
Yes. So Fairmine is run by ARM, Alliance for Responsible Mining. So we are now on their like interactive map, which is kind of fun. There's one per month. And we might actually be the only one in New England.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Other questions, board?
It's actually a newbie question. I don't recall the last time we did one of these. It was a while ago. So Patrick, this loan in the amount of 37,500, 3% for 7 years. Yep. Security will be a UCC on the 3D printer. Please explain.
Oh boy.
I just, you know.
Do you remember what UCC stands for?
Yeah, Uniform Commercial Code.
Okay.
Yes. So it's a
what does that mean?
It's a lien on the printer itself.
So a lien on the printer. So in the event of defaulting on this loan,
that's correct.
Yeah. I'm assuming that's what this means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the event, unlikely and unwished for event of defaulting on this loan, the printer becomes the property of the town.
So,
well, we sell it.
We are quickly running up against the understanding of the law. What I know is that this is a standard sort of security commitment that is asked for by our attorney in terms of making loans of this type. Okay. I know it's akin to putting a lien on the product. I don't know that we're going to go and collect it. Maybe we would. I don't know, but it hasn't happened, and I don't fear that it will in this instance.
Very good. I just wanted to kind of flesh that out because it wasn't quite obvious to me, and now it is a little clear.
It's probably not a whole lot more. I can get Bob to give a more complete answer as to what a UCC is and how it helps us
satisfy.
I know it's the standard that he has advised us to request for loans of this type.
Right, and and I also want to kind of respect the fact that the committee that reviewed this application considered all of this stuff. And when we discussed the agenda, we wanted to put this on for discussion because we wanted to hear some of this stuff, and it's been good to kind of flesh it out. And,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and I guess one question I have for Patrick is how is the fund?
Yeah.
And you were part of the committee too. You feel like this is a good use of whatever amount is in that fund.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a, you know, a really worthwhile, you know, we got a small business that's going to be just a little bit larger. And, you know, I'm not a commercial loan officer, although I do attend these meetings. And there's a way in which you find yourself saying, well, you know, we run the application through the program guidelines that the board had previously adopted. We had to make a couple of changes to the application in order to make the request fit the program. We did that, and it seems, at least from my perspective, to be a really worthwhile investment. And I suspect they're going to do great things with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's one more.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Liz.
Hi.
I got excited talking about UCC.
Yeah, I know. Two things. First, I applaud this company. I know something of artisanal gold mining and the horrors of it, and the fact that you're finding good suppliers and promoting that work is great. And I also just wanted to remind the board that in the past, these loans have been renegotiated rather than people being foreclosed upon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I think that's actually an excellent point, Liz. And it also speaks to what the goal of a loan like this is just to support a local, you know, business. And, you know, we wouldn't want to have a collection action. We would prefer to do a renegotiation or something, because the idea is we're trying to, you know, help local businesses. So yeah, that's a very fair point. Other questions or comments, board? Yeah. Oh, yeah, Jess.
Just if Patrick could speak really briefly to how the process gets started or initiated, or like how somebody accesses a loan like this in the first place.
Patrick?
Oh, I'm sorry.
The question was, how does someone, and again, why we pulled it from the consent agenda was, how would someone access this loan, a loan like this, if they were a local business that wanted?
Sure. I think they would start by reaching out to the finance department, but I'd be kind of curious as to maybe hearing your experience. How did you come across this program, and what was your first step?
Yeah, great question. I guess I've been attending many webinars and conferences on ethical gold mining and getting very excited about it, and kind of having our values align with the work we do. But there's also, I guess, the challenge with that is realizing how monumentous that is sometimes, and how the industry isn't doing enough. So how basically being like, okay, well, we are metalsmiths, we can do this all internally, but then not having cash flow and stuff to support that. So I was just actually attended other webinars, one put on by the BDCC, and heard from Chris at Hermit Thrush, and they went through the program and loved it, so they recommended it. And then also Bob Davis at BSNL recommended it as well. So word of mouth.
Great.
So the word's out.
Word's out. We're trying to. Liz?
I want to talk about that process a little bit, because the purpose of the loan program is to augment other loans that a business is getting. And so it makes a lot of sense that the savings and loan, et cetera, and the BDCC would recommend it, because we're working as a team to support local businesses.
Yeah, that's a good point. We also have a loan from a tenant loan. It's a new loan by the BDCC, which was great to work with them on. Also kind of a incubator, low interest to support small businesses. And then we have a line of credit as well through BSNL for more gold purchases and things like that from time to time.
So are your facilities located in one of the BDCC?
They are.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the cotton mill, or cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Oh, it's so I hear all about these things, but it's great to see it like actually like in work and in process. It's great. Yeah, I don't have any other questions. Oh, Liz?
Just one more thing. Do you have a showroom? Is the public invited to look at your work?
Great question. We sadly don't have a showroom that has open hours all the time, but we love to set up appointments to kind of we do love to show it off. So love to make an appointment and have you over.
Yeah, that's my final question. So the town of Brattleboro giving you this loan has an invested interest in you being successful. So plug yourself right now. Like how could, if somebody wanted to buy some of your work, how would they do it? What's your contact information? Put it into the sphere right now. Yes.
The best place is probably our website, wrmetalarts.com. Or also our email at studio@wrmetalarts.com. And everything's on there.
And you can see some of our projects on Instagram, WR Metal Arts.
Yeah. And also we have a blog post and new collections with the Fairmine Gold specifically, if you did want to see the process about that.
Yeah.
And also just fairmine.org as well for more about that.
Cool. I'll just make sure that there isn't any community comments, and I don't see any in the room either. So in that case, board members, I'd look for a motion.
Should make it.
Jess, as our member, you wanna make the motion?
Sure.
Thanks.
I move that we authorize a loan from the town's revolving loan fund to WR Metal Arts LLC as follows: $37,500 amortized over 7 years at 3% per annum with a monthly payment of $495.50, with security in the form of a UCC on a 3D printer and a personal guarantee from Will Nevins Alderfer. Sorry if I butchered that.
You're good. Perfect.
Is it Alderfer?
Alderfer.
Yeah. Alderfer. God, and reading that now, I don't know what UCC means. That seems like it's something different now that I read it out loud. No. Anyhow, okay. Jess has made a motion to authorize a loan from the town's revolving loan fund to WR Metal Arts LLC as follows: a $37,500 amortized over 7 years at 3 per annum with a monthly payment of $495.50, with a security in the form of a UCC on the 3D printer and a personal guarantee from Will Nevins Alderfer. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, board. We move on to new business agenda item 9B, which is a resolution recognizing freedom against domestic violence, a presentation by Ms. Kelsey Rice and Sherry, and I don't have a last name here.
He doesn't care.
Last name was not provided.
Okay.
Very intentionally.
Okay, that's I prefer intentional, so that's great. And Sherry. So Kelsey, welcome.
So Sherry should be available. She'll raise her hand. I believe it's the plan.
Yep.
Did you want me to offer any comments?
Oh, yes. And Patrick's just going to give a brief intro first.
So the board and the public should be make a presentation on the impact of domestic violence in our community, and had some materials that were circulated to the board earlier, I guess last week, along with a resolution that has been drafted and is seeking the support of the board for passing such a resolution this evening. And that's really the history, and I'll hand it over to Kelsey.
Okay.
And let's just make sure Sherry is...
I don't think she wants to.
Did she raise her hand? Okay. Well, when I'm finished, she'll be contributing. So that's fine. It's fine if she isn't on there right now.
Okay.
Okay. As long as we have it set up. Okay. Thank you so much for getting us on an October agenda for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Really appreciate that effort and making it on the agenda. So again, I'll give a brief intro. I'm going to use this opportunity to share lived experience to hopefully give some context as to why we've put this forth. I think that the resolution speaks for itself, and Sherry and I are happy to answer questions regarding the resolution specifically after I share some lived experience and Sherry contributes from the advocate's perspective. I'm going to do my very best to keep this to 15 minutes. Patrick, I told you I would try. And as everybody knows that knows me professionally and personally, brevity is not my strength. So I'm really going to do it. And in order to do that, I'm going to give you a snapshot. And some of what I'm going to talk about that I've experienced in this community, I need to speak generally anyway, to protect anonymity of folks. So I'm going to do my very best. We'll see how it goes. So again, I'm Kelsey Rice, born and raised in Brattleboro, Vermont, spent most of my adult life living in Brattleboro, recently moved outside of Brattleboro, but I continue to spend most of my time here serving children and families as in support services for Easter Seals. And I have a child at Mulberry Bush here in Brattleboro also. Brattleboro is very much still my town. I've experienced quite a lot as a service provider. I hold space for people in this community that are far less privileged than I am. And I held that space long before I was in the Easter Seals role. I've been in behavioral and mental health for close to 20 years, mostly in Windham County. But I did start out in the Southwest as a backpacking guide for wilderness therapy for teens and young adults. So I have that lens through which I have processed my experience. So every step of the way that I've navigated systems, it's just how my brain works. I've been analyzing the services I've received. And I think that's part of what helps get me through it. And I will say that absolutely what's expedited my recovery is the outrage that I've experienced. And it's not so much that I blame individuals. It's absolutely impossible to understand domestic violence unless you've lived it or you've dedicated your educational and professional life to understanding it. But if it's been this hard for me and continues to be, I just cannot fathom what it is for the folks in our community that don't have the privilege that I was born into. So this is what this is all about. We're hoping to expand some awareness tonight. We're hoping this is just the beginning of a lot of conversations of how we can start thinking about prevention, because this issue is going on all around us. I'm absolutely not the only survivor here tonight. I'm rarely the only survivor in any space that I sit in with multiple people. I just so happen to be willing to talk about it. And that choice isn't something I woke up one day and decided, I'm going to do this. My anonymity was taken from me. And the amount of public shame that I have had to work through, the loss of family and lifelong friend relationships that I've experienced, being dismissed every step of the way while trying to access help. Through those experiences, again, I have never lost sight of what is it for people who have not spent their entire adult life advocating for people navigating systems. I know how to do it. I do it for work. I do it every single day. And I'm navigating systems right now. This isn't all past tense. I have interventions involved in my life right now. I have an active relief from abuse order. There's a Department of Children and Families intervention happening in my family right now. So this is not all past tense. All right. So I want to highlight here that I, as a victim, have relied heavily upon law enforcement and the criminal justice system. This has been the only mechanism by which I have achieved safety. I continue to rely upon these services, and I am incredibly grateful, so grateful for the protections that I have been granted. I continue to rely on these services, but that is not the answer for every victim at all. And not every victim that reaches out to those services has the success that I've had. I will say that I remember every positive encounter I have had with law enforcement, with DCF, with economic services, across the board, educators in my children's schools, every intervention and every support that I've reached out to, those positive moments have planted seeds in my recovery. So I want to highlight that while I'm also talking about how hard it is. I don't have time, and I love when I am invited to speak to lift up those positive experiences and drop names. But if we do that, we'll be here all night. So I'm not going to do that. All right. I also want to quickly say that my experience in speaking publicly as a victim and a survivor is that people often have questions, but are very nervous to ask them. You're nervous that you're going to offend me. And I will say that I look for the intention behind the questions. I absolutely will not shame or correct anybody if they ask a question that's laced with misconceptions. In fact, I love those questions because it opens the dialogue. And that's really what this is all about. And I also find that people often want to approach me later on, reach out to me And I love those conversations. Again, anybody who knows me professionally, personally knows this is my favorite conversation topic. I don't know what that says about me, but it is. So I really, whether it pertains to your work or your personal life, I welcome those conversations. And certainly the Women's Freedom Center is the go-to for anything related, any questions. All right. So again, I want to highlight, please, this is so important. The domestic violence is not limited to the lower socioeconomic class. I am your dental hygienist. I'm behind you in the grocery line at Hannaford's. I'm your child's teacher. I'm your daughter-in-law. I'm your best friend's wife. I have had 3 different, and these women have given me permission to mention this here. I've had 3 different women in the professional community in Brattleboro reach out to me because they are afraid of what it would do to their professional reputation if they go to the police or the Women's Freedom Center. One is from a department I collaborate with on a daily basis. Another one is from our primary mental health agency here in Brattleboro. Both of those women refer people to the Women's Freedom Center regularly. They know what protections are available to them. They know the system, but they're afraid. I also have had an insurance agent that I've never met before in my life, but found my contact information online after I served on the Community Safety Review Committee, reach out to me and asked me to help her safety plan. Again, I tried to assure all of these women, the Women's Freedom Center will protect your anonymity. And all 3 of them were too afraid. So I'm trying to highlight this. Again, the shame around this issue is so much more vast than anyone understands unless your work touches it and you see it every day or you've lived it. As a victim, I've experienced stalking, physical, sexual, psychological, and economic abuse. The grip of his control kept me held in a psychological prison in which my thoughts and my choices were not my own. Over the course of my journey as a victim, I've experienced losing my home. I've experienced discrimination in workplaces and loss of employment. I've lost family and lifelong relationships. When I was ready to seek freedom for myself and my 3 children, I needed to rely upon all systems of support that I've already mentioned. And in many ways, those interactions, those positive interactions, were so vital because of the shame I was experiencing. I had a really strong understanding of the cycle of abuse prior to falling into these relationships. And so in order to accept the reality of what I was in and come out of it, it was incredibly difficult. I did not feel like I could turn to family and friends, those that were still present with me. And I will name drop. My brother, Austin, is one that he never looked away through every stage. No matter how many times I went back to the relationship, my brother, Austin, was there. And I'm highlighting that because so often victims lose their supports. Our abusers intentionally sabotage our relationships, or it's just shame that gets in the way. Either way, we lose our supports. And many, many people in our community do not have safe supports. My other brother is home holding it down with my kids tonight. I'm only here tonight because of my family. I'm incredibly blessed with the support that I have from my family system. I couldn't work without, I'm a single mother of 3 children. I cannot be 4 places at once. And that is what it requires to maintain the home and to meet all of their needs as children who have experienced domestic violence. Without my family, I really couldn't do it. And I also absolutely need to mention working for Easter Seals. Brings me to tears to think about the support that I've received as a single mother and a survivor of domestic violence. And Easter Seals in the last 3 years have simply been able to bear witness to the discrimination that I've experienced as a survivor over and over and over again. It's like every time I get through an episode, a new layer of discrimination in this community, it's like, all right, they're all excited for me. All right, she's getting her feet under her again. And there's a new wave. And you all can't do anything about it. I'm looking at some of them over there. You all can't do anything about it, but you hold space for it and you bear witness. And that is just incredible. You do not look away. And for supports to see the victim for who we are not just the sum of what we've experienced, is so vital. To be seen for what we're capable of is so important. When we leave the relationship, life does not go back to what it was prior. We have to relearn how to engage in life in all aspects of life. Life will never be the same. In many ways, facing life outside of a relationship is harder than when you're in it. Because when you're in it, it's unsafe. Good chance you could end up dead. But it's sort of a known chaos. And when you get out, you've achieved that freedom, but then you realize there is really no end in sight. I don't know what it is to experience ease in life. Every single day is a struggle. And I'm incredibly privileged. I have a beautiful home. I have incredible family support. I work for a fantastic agency. And every single day, how am I going to get my family through this? Okay, I really want to highlight that, again, we need trauma-informed training for everyone public servant involved in touching domestic violence across the board. I know so much of this comes from lack of understanding. Usually it's unintentional discrimination that we experience as victims. But I've absolutely had experiences that lead me to say, if you do not believe in every human being's ability to change, you have no business being in public service. No business. If you do not understand, then seek to understand. The person sitting across the table or on the other line of the phone from you, you are meeting them in their personal living hell. To you, it's another day in your job. Domestic violence is escalating out of control. But for that individual, they are in crisis. I also really would like to say that every person, professional and bystanders on the street, have the opportunity to shift the trajectory of domestic violence. Again, it's those positive interactions, the non-judgmental support that plant the seeds. When we're ready to leave, we draw from those seeds. Those interactions create fractures in our psychological prison, and we hold on to them. And when we're ready, the cognitive dissonance, the scales, it tilts. Speaking of, I've lost track of time. I have no idea where I am. All right. Social stigma. I've spoken about this a little bit already. I'm not going to dive too far into it other than to say it certainly continues for me. It comes up socially. It comes up professionally. There's been more than one situation, been several, where individuals have made missteps compromising their own integrity. And they attempt to flip the script, manipulate the situation, and not just indirectly, it's not just me wondering, they directly name the fact that I'm a victim of domestic violence, and therefore my perception of social interactions are inaccurate. This happens sadly fairly often. I cannot highlight enough when I think about, I'd probably say every 3 to 6 months, my family in Easter Seals know better than I do, the burden becomes too heavy. The injustice of what I've been left to deal with is too much. And I can't go on. And usually a weekend is wasted. My family steps in, takes care of the children. And I spend the weekend processing, trying to turn the pain of it all into purpose. That is the only way I can get through it. And I think about in those moments, I know I'm not going to give up. I know I'm going to keep going. But I think about the women that I hold space for. I cannot imagine being homeless with my 3 children, with no safe supports. And everywhere I go, I'm dismissed when I ask for help. I'm judged for the ways in which I cope with life, whether it be substance use or engaging in more unhealthy relationships. Those patterns are not healthy, and they will not ultimately lead to full recovery. But absolutely no one here listening tonight can possibly fathom what it is like to be living in that situation. I was not born into generational poverty. I have not lived a lifetime of trauma. I was not abused as a child. I didn't grow up with a family that was addicted to substances. And if it is this difficult for me, survivors in our community deserve so much respect. So much. All right, quickly, economic impact. Just a snapshot. Again, I try not to, I could go on for hours of economic impact when in relationships, so I'm going to quickly talk about what it's like, the long arc of recovery. This is where, as we have introduced the economic impact report from the Vermont Network, I want to quickly speak about that. So I have had credit cards and loans taken out in my name, leaving me with the debt and destroying my credit. This has happened after the relationship. Fraudulently claiming my child on taxes after not having contact with him for years. Actually doesn't even know him. Stealing not only a significant tax refund as a single parent, but also all COVID relief under my child's social security number. I was able to get some of that back, but it took over a year. It's not safe for me to file for child support. I know that. Absolutely not safe. It's better to not have any ties. Despite working full-time, salaried position, a single mother of 3 children, I am eligible for food benefits and fuel assistance, which I've actually reached the limit. And it's only because of deductions in my eligibility that I'm still receiving food benefits. And it's pretty scary to think about when I get another increase. It's doubtful that I will get an increase that matches the amount of food benefits that I receive. And I have 3 sons. One of them is over a head taller than I am. They would go through a serious amount of food. This is something that I'm not really worrying about. At this point, I've been through so much hardship. I have full faith I will figure it out. I always do. But for me, again, this is a real worry, but it's nothing compared to what families are experiencing here in this community. All of my children are on Medicaid. I do not pay. I pay $0 for premiums and copays. There are docket numbers in Wyndham Court in criminal, family, civil, and probate with my name on them, all of which I'm either the victim or plaintiff, and I have not paid a penny for any of those processes. Because of my eligibility with economic services, those fees are waived. My abuser has done a significant amount of time in jail regarding convictions related to domestic violence against me, including extraditing him back from Alaska. Again, not a penny. All of this is funded by you all. And I'm not proud of this. It's out of my control. I need these protections. I need to feed my children. I cannot possibly work any harder. I certainly cannot have another job. I cannot function to my full capability in any area of my life. And there's no self-loathing involved when I say that. I have more self-worth than I've ever had. It is not humanly possible for me to live to my full potential in any area of my life with everything that's on my plate. So again, when I think about the women that I hold space for, it's amazing they're still standing. I don't think I would be. I don't think I would be. I also want to mention that in the long arc of recovery, we actually, as mothers, we cannot fully sever ties with our abusers quite often. They often continue to harm us by way of our children. They file undue court processes or drag them out. We're frequently forced to co-parent with them. The abuse does not stop despite years of separation. And I am living this. So I am here. I am upright. I'm doing this every day. And I've really achieved so much gratitude. This is why I do the work that I do. People often tell me, you should get a different line of work. I mean, your life is intense enough. Why are you doing this? Why are you working in it and living it? But I think it's the only thing that keeps me grounded. It keeps me grateful. It gives me hope because I know where I've been and I can see how privileged I am. And I want to say to everyone here tonight that with privilege comes responsibility. I am so tired of being surrounded by privileged people that look the other way. I have had people say to me, I'm really worried about what it will do to you professionally if you continue to speak about these things. And I just want to laugh and scream at the same time because it is going on all around us. All around us. People that are more privileged have the resources to keep it quiet, but it is going on all around us. I just happen to be talking about it. I totally lost track of time, but I'm going to sum it up before we dive into questions about the resolution and saying that I do this not only for victims and survivors, but I also do it for those who cause harm. I'm the single mother of 3 boys who have experienced domestic violence. And I don't think I could continue on if I didn't believe in change. We need everyone to begin investing in this issue. The police and the court cannot possibly do more than they're doing. More than anything, I want to know how to inspire men to step into leadership. I want to know how are we going to get grandfathers and fathers, coaches, team captains to step into leadership. I want to know, why are we not investing in teen boys? Why are we not investing in group support for teen boys that have experienced domestic violence? All teens. We're starting to invest more into what does a healthy relationship look like. That is happening. We need more. And we need men to stop looking the other way. Stop looking at it, oh, they'll figure it out. It's not my business. It takes 2. Or enabling it by laughing at the jokes. We need those who cause harm to be held accountable by those they respect. That is what's going to shift the tide. I am here tonight just being able to speak about these issues because of our grandmothers. It is going to take getting men involved to make a change. So I guess, again, for those that don't have a heart, we are spending millions and millions and millions of dollars after violence has happened. No, we're not here tonight to ask for money, but this is part of this discussion, right? So we need to start thinking about investing in prevention. We're going to continue to crank out this problem. It's not going anywhere. Thank you. I don't know how long that was, Patrick. Tried.
First off, thank you very much for the presentation. Would you mind speaking just to the resolution itself?
Absolutely.
Or do you want?
Can we just, Sherry was quickly going to share a more brief bit.
I just want to, I'm very conscious of the, we try around 8 o'clock to give our interpreters a break, but
yes.
Why don't we hear first from Sherry and then maybe we go a little longer. I'll try to work it.
Do we have a Sherry, Jessica?
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes,
we can.
Yep.
You can hear me? Okay. So hello, everybody, and thanks so much for being here tonight. And thank you, Kelsey, for that powerful reminder of what's really at stake here and also what's possible. So my name is Sherry, and I'm the Community Outreach Advocate at the Women's Freedom Center. For those who maybe aren't as familiar, we're the Domestic and Sexual Violence Resource Organization for Windham and Southern Windsor counties. And we've been doing this work in the community now for 48 years. We always want to emphasize, too, that we're committed to supporting survivors of all genders who've experienced domestic or sexual violence or sex trafficking. But before I jump to tonight's resolution, I just want to express our gratitude to this generous community all these 48 years. The Freedom Center never could and never has done our work alone. We're thankful to report also that even through the pandemic, all our crisis services have remained intact, from our 24-hour hotline to our confidential shelters. And to give you just a quick glimpse, this past fiscal year alone, we supported 606 survivors of all genders, sheltering 74 adults and 50 kids, often for many months at a time. We also responded to over 2,000 hotline calls and provided thousands of hours of individual and group support, advocacy, and financial assistance. Beyond that, and this is key for tonight's agenda, we provided justice and wellness-themed workshops literally across the lifespan. From teaching kids about respect to teaching teens about healthy relationships, to offering adults bystander empowerment workshops to help end sexual harassment in the workplace, in faith communities, and well beyond. And we've helped train frontline and social service organizations on what to look for around domestic violence, addressing critical safety planning for their own staff when working with families, and exploring safe and effective ways to support someone who may be at risk. We welcome every chance to talk with and listen to our community and to serve that greater good. Whenever possible, our goal is to be a 24/7 resource, not just for survivors, but for concerned community members who can also reach out to us confidentially, whether they're the friend, neighbor, coworker, or are in any way connected to someone who's being harmed or to someone doing that harm. Sadly, of course, such trauma could happen to any of us here tonight, and statistically, we know it already has. In particular, 1 in 3 women experiences domestic or sexual violence at some point in life. Just think about that for a moment as you look around or consider the people you know. In spite of all the progress we've made around the country and around the world, there's still no place more dangerous for women in particular than their own home. But domestic violence doesn't just stay at home when survivors leave the house. We are all impacted in some way because survivors surround us every single day in every realm of our lives, whether they've shared that part of their history or not. And there are still far more silent survivors than those who feel able to even come forward. Fear and stigma can be enormous barriers to live with, so any public effort to reduce those in our community will send a lasting and meaningful message, and not just to survivors, but to potential offenders as well. And even so, survivors who do reach out may not turn first or ever really to advocates or to 911, but they might confide in or come to the attention of someone who's already known to them and who recognizes the signs that someone may be in trouble. No 2 survivors face the same risks, of course. One might literally be saved by calling police, but another may face even greater danger for doing so. And that means the best safety net any of us can ever have is to live in a community that is itself informed and stays proactive. It makes clear its ongoing commitment and strives collectively to end domestic violence. Every organization can have an impact and help fundamentally transform what's unacceptable in our community. And that brings us to tonight's resolution, which is not just an investment in survivors' human rights, but in overall social progress, in the quality of attention we give to one of the oldest health pandemics of all, and that's domestic violence. Nearly 5 decades in, the mission of the Freedom Center hasn't changed. Beyond all our daily crisis work, we're still inspired by one profound question. What will it take to create a culture where domestic violence is no longer tolerated, no longer seen as just private, where human rights and dignity are woven right into the fabric of our social contract? As advocates, we believe strongly that the language we use and the lens we use play a crucial role in creating change. How we see and speak about something informs whether and how we even respond. So framing domestic violence as a human rights issue takes it out of the private realm to put it squarely where it's always belonged, into public focus as a societal issue, and one we all have a stake in addressing at every level, in our personal lives and our organizational practices. So as you may know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and 2022 happens to be the 35th year of these commemorations. Yes, there's been shift and ever more allies, but the end is still far from certain. There's still so much work to be done around both learning and unlearning in our current culture. So adopting this resolution means reaching farther and publicly raising the bar. It's a positive move that aligns Brattleboro with countless towns and cities worldwide who've created a similar ethical stepping stone to encourage not just continued awareness, but skilled preparedness too at every level through respectful collaborations and a clear commitment to safety and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherry. Yeah, excellent. I think the first thing I'm just going to do is look to Sarah our interpreter, who's currently on. Are you feel good with us going on with the rest of this agenda item? I prefer to do that than interrupt halfway through. So I think we'll just continue on with this. Excellent, good. Is that at the end of the presentation so far? Okay, excellent. So I'll open it up to the board for questions, comments before we go. Yeah, Liz.
Thanks, Ian. I just am so grateful to Kelsey and the Women's Freedom Center, Sheila. And I have so much, Sherry, I'm sorry. And I have so much respect for all of your work. And I am grateful that you brought this to the board, and I'm fully supportive of this resolution. And I hope that we as a town could become more skilled to prepare and support the women and children that are at risk here or in crisis. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Board members? Daniel.
Yep. Thank you, Kelsey and Sherry, for the presentation. I will admit to being resolution skeptical, and it's been a good learning experience for me tonight to be reminded of why sometimes making space for something like this, where I'm like, okay, I don't know if this resolution is going to quite do what we want to do here. Like, I fully support what you and the Women's Freedom Center and all the other organizations that are working on this issue are trying to achieve. And then when I see a resolution, I'm like, I feel so conflicted about this because it feels flimsy to me. But making space for the kind of presentation that we've just heard in a public meeting that will be, watched by people in the town and hopefully reported upon by the press. And, even just the relatively small number of us in this room tonight, we're all impacted by hearing these stories. And so I'm glad to have my kind of skepticism kind of challenged a little bit. And so then I am in support of this resolution. That's totally fine. I was in support of it from when I heard about it, right? But then what kind of thinking can come out of this resolution? And so for me, as somebody who's on a policy-making board that's connected with a pretty large organization, right? A pretty large employer. I look to our public safety departments, so the police department, obviously, but also the fire department through, providing EMS services and even just their routine calls, going out into the community. When you go out into somebody's home, you might see some things, right? And so I also think of public works as well in that regard. These are departments that are out in the world interacting with community members. And so I do wonder about what preparedness and trainings those departments have in order to be able to identify, domestic violence situations. I'm assuming that the police department, and I would imagine that the fire department, have mandated training and pretty intensive training around these issues. But I would like to hear confirmation that that is the case. And if it isn't the case, I would like for us to be thinking as an organization how we can do better in that. The piece of the economic impact report that hit me as a municipal policymaker was from the Vermont State Police. Major Ingrid Jonas spoke about how in their application stage of, trying to hire troopers, they're looking to weed out people who are seeking to do that job, but hold beliefs or opinions that are going to be in opposition to ending domestic violence. And then they train their recruits to do this work skillfully that supports people that are impacted by domestic violence. So I would like to hear that our police department is doing something similar to that. I believe that they are, but I would like confirmation. And then the larger reaching kind of point that Major Jonas made was how the people who have been impacted by domestic violence, much like those households in our community that have been impacted by poverty, has then a kind of ripple out effect. And so when we're going to calls, you know, if you look at our logs for the kinds of calls that we go to from our public safety departments, we're going to a lot of calls that may well have their roots in some of the trauma around this, some of the trauma around growing up in generational poverty. And so I think that as a organization of a large number of employees and as the policymaking body, you know, connected to that organization, I think we can seek to do work that aims at eradicating domestic violence. And I would, you know, in my amateurish and unskillful way, I would like to be as much a part of that as I can be. You know, I do seek to be an ally in these matters. And especially, I think, you know, you do right in saying that men need to take more of an active role in this. I saw an email from the school superintendent supporting this resolution. And I would imagine that there is work either ongoing right now with school systems or, you know, can be happening in future that has young men talking about these issues, you know, early on. You know, it's not something that was talked about in my childhood. You know, I was also the school teacher for a decade, and honestly, it's not something that was really talked about much in professional development. You know, so men do need to be more visible in these conversations and be willing to take on more of an active role and hold, you know, hold their buddies accountable. So I would like confirmation on our training practices. And I would say broadly that, you know, as an organization, we can keep this a little more high profile, perhaps. If it already is very high profile, then great. But if it isn't, let's try and do that.
Well, I see you looking right at me.
I am
looking
at you.
I you know, I want to take the question seriously and not answer it off the cuff.
Yeah, thank you.
I can't see that far, and I don't know if they're here, but there were a couple people from Brat PD that were going to try to be here, so they might be able to answer your question. I don't know if I'm allowed to put them on the spot, and I can't see that far.
Well, we'll hear from the rest of the board.
Kind of.
Sherry has raised her hand again.
Yeah. And I want to just give the rest of the board an opportunity to speak if there's anything right now, but then I'm happy to put Sherry back on.
I can speak, but why don't you, if you never know if it's very urgent.
Is she unmuted already?
She's not.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to just jump in and say, absolutely, the Freedom Center has provided and stays open to providing training to all the organizations you mentioned, including the fire department. As I mentioned, even just briefly, really any organization that might be working with a household. So doing home visits, even if it's not safety related, but they're interacting with both members of a relationship, there's potential value there in doing some training around signs to look for. And when we talk about safety planning, as I mentioned before too, we don't look at just safety planning for the person who's maybe at risk, but also for bystanders, also for the home visitor. What are some of the safest ways to get some helpful information to that survivor potentially? And those are absolutely staff trainings that we've done. Police departments have been open to that. Of course, COVID has put some things a little bit on the back burner, but these things are picking back up again. So those conversations are ongoing. And, you know, we also feel that they could happen easily on an ongoing basis, like once a year at a minimum, so that we can all be learning from each other what we're seeing. And for any deeper dive conversations, people can give the Women's Freedom Center a call by all means.
Excellent. Thank you. Tim, did you?
I'll be brief.
Okay.
I wanted to echo some of the, you were very eloquent there, Daniel, in a lot of ways. I think, and just say thank you for this presentation. And I'm so glad you're we were able to get you in for October. I see this sort of, and I sometimes share Daniel's, skepticism about declarations or documents with a lot of whereases, but I'm looking at this as similar to the Declaration of Inclusion that we just passed very recently. And the challenge I heard there from Curtis Reed, as I heard it, was to walk the talk. And we all have to find our ways, especially I think as men. Men can be perpetrators, not all the time, but very often that is the case. So we have a special responsibility as men to do that, I think. And today I attended an IDEA committee meeting because that was part of my small amount of time I could give to sort of walk the talk on the Declaration of Inclusion. So I think I would throw out, and I just wanted to say that there were police and fire at that meeting, speaking up nicely. So I'm sure that they'll be enthusiastically involved in this going forward. I would love to just throw out a question to the presenters, how best to walk the talk, and it's not designed to have you answer right now. It's designed to sort of come to me in a conversation maybe, while I also process how to do that as well, both in my position in leadership, as we all have up here on the select board, but also in everyday life. So I think it's a great question for everyone to ask themselves. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Dan. In order to answer Daniel's very specific and serious question, I was going to need to speak to the chief, but I understand the chief is in the Zoom room. Wanted to pose the question to her. She's prepared to give an answer.
Excellent.
Consider it posed.
Chief Hardy.
Yes, hello.
Chief.
Hello.
Chief.
Yeah. Hello, good evening, everyone. So to answer your question, Daniel, yes. Not only do we participate in all of the statewide training along with the training that the states take as far as domestic violence, answering domestic violence calls, and how to offer assistance and help to victims. But at the Brattleboro Police Department also, we have an open relationship with Women's Freedom Center. We communicate quite often. I've met with Kelsey a couple of times on some of the things that she wants the officers to be aware of. I've set up training sessions with some of the women who are survivors that want to come and talk to the officers and tell them from their point of view how they feel when an officer has to respond and learn from mistakes from the past of responses to these types of situations. So we are actively working and participating in all of these aspects of that surround this presentation, which Kelsey, good job, and the issues at hand also.
Thank you very much, Chief. Jess, I'm not trying to put you on the spotlight, but I'm going to open it up to the community unless you'd like to speak now.
I just want to echo the thanks that everyone else has voiced for Kelsey, for sharing your story, and for all the great work that the Women's Freedom Center does. Yeah.
Thank you. Is anyone from the community who'd like to speak on this item? Just go ahead and state your name and where you're from for the record.
Brattleboro. Kelsey, just want to say thank you. I just want to say the bell is rung for those who hear it, men, women, teenagers, anyone that hears this. It's a wake-up call to a realization that this is real, not imaginary. It's time to come together, be it a dad's group, mother's group, family groups, to start working together as a community, as a family, as we were set out to be, to come together and to bring that peace and harmony back into the family, into the community, and in relationship. But that bell can only be heard by those who want to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. Good to see you in person. I'll just look to Zoom if there's any hands up. I don't see any. I don't see anybody else from the community now. I sometimes lose my own voice here when I'm just trying to make sure everyone else is being heard. Thank you so much to both of you for the presentation, for the information, for the resolution. I don't feel quite as skeptical as Mr. Quip does on the resolutions, because I do feel strongly that the select board is it's a space for us to put information into the world and into our community that matters, that people need to be informed about. This feels very much within that. But then more importantly, with this resolution, we as policy, the select board, whoever is elected as the policy makers for the town, need to hold many values in our arms as we're thinking about each thing that the town does. And when we make resolutions like this that are written, are signed, are part of the makeup of our town documents and of just of our universe, it helps us to remember that thing to hold on to. And so I really value this time and this resolution. I think it's really important. I echo all of my fellow board members on what they've said, and I don't think I can say it better myself. But I just hope that we can really walk the walk here, especially as a large employer as well. And I think that's one place where I really do feel I can just say, if I understand sort of the direction of the board, we're going to pass this. And so this is a policy direction that the select board is making, saying that we are prioritizing and emphasizing that that domestic violence is a critical element of what we want to make sure our employees are being trained on, and that this is something that we are focusing on. And so I would say that let this be a clear direction from the select board on this issue. And that, is a powerful effect that a resolution like this can have.
Understood.
Sweet. Other thoughts? We do have a hand.
Hey, sorry, I'm trying to see if I can.
We can hear you.
Oh,
and we can see you. Oh, and just state your name and where you're from for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Bill Pels-Walsh. I'm from Dummerston. And I just wanted, again, to thank Sherry and Kelsey for the presentation and for the select board taking us up to consider this piece. I've been running the Domestic Abuse Accountability Program in Brattleboro for the last 28 years. I've worked with over 2,000 men who have caused harm to their partners. And way back at the beginning of this work, there was not a lot of focus and a lot of talk and a lot of energy on the importance of working to create safety for survivors and to hold men accountable. I think we're finally in an area where accountability is critical. We all need to be accountable for our words and our actions. And I think to have a townwide resolution that speaks to this and really emphasizes that this is an issue that we all take seriously, I think is a very important statement. And so I just want to let it be known that I'm fully supportive of this resolution and would love to see more men stepping up. There's always been a funding issue in terms of monies available, but I think we could do a lot of good work around bringing men into being mentors and working with men who cause harm. I'd love to see more work and more effort going into that direction. But thank you. I'm in support of the resolution and just wanted that to be on the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. And I would like to put on the record, thank you very much for all the work that you do for this community. Kelsey, I was wondering, would you be willing to actually read the whereas section?
You have it.
Do you have it with you?
I have all, you want me to read all the whereases?
Maybe not the whereas, but the
final.
Final
Resolution?
Therefores. The be it resolved element. I think that would be helpful for us to hear before we make a vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Brattleboro joins leaders in Vermont, in the United States, and around the world in recognizing freedom from domestic violence as a fundamental human right, thereby raising awareness and committing to help shift historical cultural norms. And be it further resolved that the town of Brattleboro strongly supports the effort to eradicate domestic violence locally through continued community education and prevention work. And be it finally resolved that this resolution shall serve as a charge to all town employees to consider the impact of domestic violence in town decisions and ensure that policies and practices are informed by domestic violence survivors' voices and needs.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that? You can. Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's no other comments, but I think. Okay. So, board, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion. I move to adopt the resolution of the town of Brattleboro recognizing freedom from domestic violence as a fundamental human right.
You got it.
Daniel has made a motion to adopt the resolution of the town of Brattleboro recognizing freedom from domestic violence as a fundamental human right. Board members, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Sherry, Kelsey, thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you so much for the work that you do. We're really very grateful for the time that you've taken to be here with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. I apologize to our interpreters. It's almost 8:30. So we're going to take a break right now for 10 minutes. So we'll reconvene at right around 8:40 to carry on with the meeting. Thank you. Okay, we are reconvening the Brattleboro Select Board meeting. It is 8:41. We're a little bit behind from when I said we'd restart. So we're going to move on to new business agenda item C, which is the Brattleboro Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, proposed changes. First reading. I think we're looking to Sue on Zoom.
Just going to fade up from black. Stand by.
Oh. Yeah.
Didn't fade up like usual today.
Oh. Yeah, I know.
I'm disappointed.
I have a new laptop. I think it's running faster.
Yeah, sweet. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm here tonight to ask you to hold a first reading of the Brattleboro Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Bicycle Ordinance, or Bicycles, Article 1. This came about from Alice Sharks, who is a member of the Brattleboro Coalition of Active Transportation, and she does a lot of bicycle advocacy around town. And she noted that our ordinances were, that there had been changes to state statute, which rendered parts of our ordinances out of date. And so she worked with or ran some proposed changes by Police Chief Hardy. And then we brought these changes to the Traffic Safety Committee, who at their September meeting voted to support the ordinance amendments. So just briefly, I will tell you about them. Mostly they are to come into compliance with state law. But the one major one, but with little consequence, is to eliminate the requirement to register bicycles. So we actually had an ordinance provision that said you had to register your bicycles, and if you didn't register them, you could be subject to a fine. We brought in a whopping total of $11 in revenues in fiscal year 2021. So clearly, bicycle registration is not something that's happening. It's not something that the town finds anybody with. It's a little bit, I guess, arcane. So that whole section is proposed to be removed from the ordinance. Although the police chief did tell me, bicycle registration can be useful if they ever need to track a bicycle that has been stolen, but it's not anything that anybody feels needs to be required. So some of the other changes to the ordinances are you can, some of the modes that you can operate a bicycle have been changed. It used to be that you had to have both hands on the handlebars. You couldn't have somebody riding on your handlebars, and that you could not ride more than two people, or even with two people together side by side riding abreast. And that has been changed to the state statute. So there are certain situations where most of the time you can ride two abreast. There were some changes about hand signaling and when a bicyclist can be out of the right hand side of the road. If they're making a left, they can be in the left turn lane, and so on and so forth. And then there were some changes to the hand signals that, so the proposed changes to our ordinance are just to bring it into line with state statute. And then some clarification about the use of lights, both on the front of the bicycle and the rear of the bicycle. So that's kind of the summary of the changes. Again, it has been reviewed by the police department and everything seems to be in line. And so we're just looking to update our ordinances to make them more consistent with state statute and do away with some parts of it that are just old and haven't been in use.
Excellent. Sue, thank you very much for the presentation. Board members, questions, comments? Well, I always look at Daniel's side first, so I don't think—
Go over there.
Yes, you do.
Liz.
You favor Daniel.
Well, he is my vice chair. Liz.
Aside from your squabbling there on the board, I just want to say that I am the Traffic Safety Committee member representing the Select Board this year. And I was present when Alice and Sue discussed this issue and voted for it. And I support it now. And, that you can't go wrong being in sync with state statute.
Yeah.
Well, in most circumstances.
Thank you very much, Liz. Other board members? Tim.
Okay, I just want to make sure this is not, I'm not doing this tongue in cheek. Does it now not say that riding with someone on the handlebars is illegal?
Yes, it is saying yes. So that is being stricken.
I mean,
so it won't be subject to a fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Is that in compliance with state statute now?
I'm sorry, I don't know that.
That's probably
that's a question to get an answer to, right?
Well, I can find that for the second reading.
It's just a second reading. Excellent.
Yeah. We could assume probably.
Well,
I mean, despite the fact that it makes for a good double mint gum commercial, riding with somebody on the handlebars seems like a terrible idea to me. But my real question.
Last time we made a double mint gum commercial.
Well, I'm a Gen X. That's a Gen X joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More of a juicy fruit, man.
Was it juicy fruit?
No, I'm just saying more of a juicy fruit.
All right.
So my real question is, the only thing that surprised me was the operating a bicycle in the dark, and it brings the language into compliance with state statute by providing a distance that front and rear lamps must be visible. I wasn't really aware that there was a requirement for front and rear lamps for riding at night.
Well,
so all I'm saying is,
Sue is shaking her head. Yes,
maybe it's an opportunity for some education down the road. Not an emergency, but I think it'd be great to, have a little social media awareness campaign if this does pass.
Oh, that's actually, yeah. It's an excellent point for safety.
I have something to contribute to that
discussion.
Hi, Ian, and board. So when I was on the Traffic Safety Committee, thank you, Liz, for taking that over this year. Oh my God, 8 o'clock on a Thursday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
No, thanks. We did have some discussion about having a small amount of funding available to provide for, I think it was reflective equipment and lights I was in the police department a while back, and I think I saw some of that stuff kicking around in a storage closet. And so I was wondering if it could come out of the storage closet and be in vehicles, so that when police officers are out patrolling, as they do, if they come across a bicyclist who's in need of lights to make their bicycling safer, right, for everybody, because they'd much rather make it safer than have to kind of deal with the accident, that they could simply distribute that. You know, I recall the kind of distribution of this reflective and safety equipment was like a little tricky. But if it's in the cars and we spot somebody who's riding a bicycle at night, we spot them luckily, right? Because it's actually pretty hard to see them. You know, rather than stopping them and issuing a fine, we could stop them and give them what they need in order to cycle safely. So that's my request of the town.
Noted.
Thank you.
Other board members?
I just want to thank the committee and Alice for the hard work.
Yeah, I echo that. I think my thought is, yeah, Alice, thank you so much for this work. I think that it's something that we should probably be considering in other areas where we have ordinances where perhaps they are not in alignment with state statute. And I don't know if we have a process in place now for sort of a annual or periodic review of our ordinances to ensure that they are in compliance.
We do not.
Yeah.
They are not.
Oh, good. Okay.
But we do, you know, we've been plugging away.
How many ordinances do we have?
At making them
We have
less
20
bad.
chapters, although some of them are vacant. Not all chapters are filled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some chapters could have how many ordinances?
You mean how many sections?
Oh, I see. So, okay. So it could be a lot. I understand now. Yes. All right. Well,
so they're, you know, they're woefully out of date.
Yeah.
Not always consistent with state statute. I can say that before Peter Elwell was hired, I had this on a top priority list, and 8 years later, it's still something I consider to be a bit of a priority.
So, board, I think this is a little off topic, but I think it stays within the realm of a discussion about ordinance amendments. I think it would be kind of an interesting idea for a committee.
Oh,
I see.
Maybe we should put that on an agenda sometime.
Yeah.
Because this is the first reading of this ordinance.
That's
not just a discussion about ordinances.
Might I suggest 2 points?
Yes.
The first is that there are professional consultants who specialize in such things. Mm-hmm. And secondly, it might be worth talking to Bob, and, you know, it also might be worth considering some of the capacity issues that we mentioned previously.
Yeah.
And recognize that, you know, for 7 years, Mr. Elwell had other more important things to do as well.
Yeah.
Not saying it isn't, they shouldn't be reviewed and considered, but it is a very technical task generally, particularly the process of making sure that one's municipal code is consistent with state and federal law.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that, Patrick. Yeah, yep. Fair. Daniel.
We have the choice to enforce ordinances or not. So even if an ordinance is on the, not we, but like, you know, if an ordinance is on the books that is just ridiculous and obsolete, it could still then not be actively enforced, right?
Yeah.
Like my favorite, the don't throw stones.
Yeah.
Or
that exists.
Yeah.
And if it's an ordinance that is also not is counter to a state statute, then I would assume it's also,
it would be very silly to
it would be
enforce
pretty silly to enforce it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I hear that's okay. Yeah. Just something to think about.
As we say in Jersey, irregardless.
Any other? You got Jess on that one. All right.
Aiming for Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not one of those people.
So any other discussion, board? Seeing none, I'm just going to look to the community. I don't see any hands up there. So in that case, board, I would look for a, oh no, there's no motion. We are just, this is just the first reading. Sue, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. All right, so we move on to new business agenda item D, which is radio replacement, Brattleboro Police Department. I think Patrick's going to give us a little intro, and then Jessica, if you don't mind queuing up Chief Hardy, that would be great.
So the question before the board this evening is we are seeking your authorization to spend $90,690.42 for 19 new police department radios. And I'd like to give just a little bit of context about this. Radio replacement is not an expense that you will find in the operating budget. Radio replacement is conducted in the capital program. As the board will recall and the public will recall, we have our equipment, our regularly replaced equipment in a 25-year replacement program. At the present time, these radios are set to be replaced in fiscal 26. There's a couple of things I need to tell you about that. The first is that I started to wonder a little bit when I first heard about this. You know, did we go too long, or did we expect too much of these radios? You know, fiscal 26. You know, that's a couple of years away. What I realized has happened is that I would say overall with the equipment replacement program, the town's intention is to keep the increase in expenditures as slow and steady as possible, considering the equipment needs of the police department, the fire department, DPW, rec and parks, and, you know, sort of general services. So in order to ensure that, you know, one particular year's expenses for one particular department does not cloud out any other department, you know, we've taken great pains to sort of spread things out. And what happens is from time to time, an item which should be replaced after 10 years might get nudged out to 11 years because, you know, it really kind of helps even out the overall increase in expenditures over time. That's what has happened with this particular radio replacement. While it's in the program as of last year to be replaced in fiscal 26, if you go back 2 years ago, I noticed it was intended to be replaced in fiscal 24, the budget year for which we are just getting ready to start working on. So while it was a solution to a budgeting challenge to push it out a little bit a few years ago, clearly we didn't get lucky. And so we find ourselves in a moment in time where we have an urgent need to replace equipment. But unfortunately, the funds, you know, we weren't planning to spend these funds for a couple of years. So what staff is seeking today is authorization from the board to go ahead and spend those funds now. And I think the chief will speak to the urgency of the matter in just a moment. We will move the radio replacement up in time, bring it back from fiscal 26 to fiscal 24, where it was originally placed. And we will need to have an article on the warning for town meeting seeking their ratification of the board's decision this evening. But, you know, in working with the chief and the finance director over the course of the last couple of weeks on this issue, it's important that we take this action. We take this action tonight. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Chief?
Yes, hello. Yeah, as Patrick stated, you know, the radios that we have now, unfortunately, are at end of life. So therefore, they can no longer be serviced. They're not working up to the potential that they started out with. So we have a lot of dead spots where we have no communication. We have radios that the batteries will not hold the charge for the entire tour. You know, and it depends on where you are, whether or not your radio is transmitting or not lately. And we've talked to Motorola, who has told us that there's no more service to be done to these radios. You know, so I can't get batteries and just put new batteries in or what have you. Nothing is going to make them more serviceable. So speaking with Patrick and the finance director, we tried to come up with a way that my officers that are on duty now, plus an ACO and a radio at the dispatch is what we need. Because right now we don't have an extra radio at all. We just have the last radio lost service and no longer works. So we pulled our last extra, and that's on the road right now with one of my officers. So we are at the breaking point now of radios. So that's the reason for me asking for to buy the 19 immediately, and then the rest we can get as we get more officers on until we're at the full staff for everyone to have a radio.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chief.
And the only thing I would, I want to echo what the chief has said in her memo. This is really an issue of officer safety, right? We've had a situation, I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but we had a situation recently where someone needed to call for backup and was unable to do so. And so, you know, that presents a real threat to our employees' ability to stay safe and for their ability to help protect the community around us. So,
yeah, thank you, Patrick. Board members,
look that way. Not me.
Well, I'm certainly in support of this. I just wanted to ask a question: should these be in operating and not capital?
I believe they are in. A lot of things are in capital because they're, you know, you buy them in large quantities. Sure. So for example, like our computer replacement is in capital, even though each computer may only be $1,500 or $2,000 or something like that.
Right.
So I believe according to our, the way in which our funds are structured and the way in which our charter defines capital, I think the answer is yes.
Okay. Well, certainly the charter makes reference to it. It just seems like, you know, just operating a business, my accountant often corrects me when I try to put something into capital when it's actually, it feels expensive to me because it's but it's something I use over and over again. It has a very limited lifespan. And I'm just wondering if this would fall into that category and avoid this kind of hand wringing about a very necessary repeating expense. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Liz.
I support this purchase. I think it's very important, and we've learned over the years how important it is to communicate within the department and between the fire department and the police department, and as Patrick said, to keep our officers safe and to help our officers keep our community safe. I'm fully in support of this measure.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz. Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in support of it. I did have some questions around process and whatnot, and Patrick's introduction answered a lot of them. So this was originally kind of planned for fiscal year 26. Do we have the dollar amount that we expected to spend at that time available?
So
or is it
let me correct that statement just a little bit. It was originally to be, if you go back a couple of years ago, this was to be replaced in fiscal 24. Okay. It got pushed out a little further
when other things were
in order to, you know, make the plan work a little more smoothly. Okay. That hasn't proven feasible.
Yeah.
One of the things, you know, because we've been able to be in contact with the radio supplier, we've been able to update expenses. And I think we'll be going into the fiscal 24 budget with a much more sound estimate than had been there. Okay. I think it was in 26 for 125, and we believe it's going to be more like 140.
Okay. All right. And so we're doing this now because we just want to jump on it and buy these darn radios like tomorrow, rather than have this be in the capital budget for the.
So I would say both are correct. In many ways, this is very much like, if you'll recall, a couple of years ago, the animal control officers, the ACO vehicle died. Mm-hmm. It died the year prior to its replacement. And rather than subject the community to a reduction in services, we purchased the vehicle and then continued to fund it in the next fiscal year. That sort of repaid the capital for the, in effect, borrowing that took place. So the very same thing would happen here. We would get the minimal amount of radios that we absolutely positively need to stay safe and continue delivering service now. We'd fund the program in fiscal 24, which would replace what has been spent and allow us to buy the full complement of radios.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So the adjustments. See a head nod there. Yeah, I'll just speak for a moment. So first, yes, fully in support as well. And I also acknowledge and appreciate Chief, your and the department's work to keeping these going as long as you have. You know, I think that something I'm always amazed by with town staff is how much goes into making do with the equipment that everyone has. And, you know, I'm glad that this is coming before the board now, because it's clearly a safety issue. And this is the right time to be voting on it. The other element is more towards Patrick. Is there anything that you think we could do in our capital plan to highlight or annotate changes that are made to capital items that get moved further out, so that we, you know, have them in mind in case they come up sooner? So I guess an instance like this would be, I think it sounds like maybe this was bumped more than once. Potentially,
it's possible that it was bumped more than once, or it was bumped 2 years once.
Yeah.
So I didn't check each historical year to see where it had moved.
And so one thing I could see is if it was planned, if it was bumped multiple times over multiple years, if there was some way to know that it had been bumped in the previous year, maybe there would have been a decision to bump something else so that it didn't get as far out. I don't know if it's something that is feasible, but it's just
it's certainly something we need to keep our mind on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bet often that decision is made at the departmental level. So, you know, for us to try to build in some sort of thing might be a little.
It's made at the town manager's office.
Yeah. Okay. I just thought that the departments put forward their recommended budget, and it may have happened from a recommendation. But yeah.
There's a little bit, you know, I like to think of the town manager's office as a value-added department, right? So, you know, each of the departments has, you know, their requests, and you know, when it gets to the town manager's office and working with the finance department, we need to sometimes, you know, nudge things out or possibly break something up over a couple of years. Just trying to find that satisfactory way in which to keep the increase in costs steady. If you think back to maybe, I would say about 8 years ago or prior, we would have years where, you know, we'd try and buy a fire truck with cash, right? So we'd spend $700,000 or something like this, and it would crowd out absolutely every other department. So, you know, we're really sorry you can't have police cars this year because they need a fire truck. And so there's been an extended effort on the part of the board and with the help of the staff to try and, all right, how do we manage this in such a way that you know, we're maintaining our rolling stock and maintaining our equipment, doing so with cash in real time, and trying not to, you know, basically let anybody down. Occasionally something like this comes along and we need to, you know, sort of, all right, pushed that one a little too far.
Yeah.
But I would say sometimes the direction is the other way as well, so something gets inched up a little bit.
Yeah, as in that process.
Of trying to maintain slow and steady. But you're absolutely right, Mr. Chairman, that we need to keep our eye on, all right, what is the expected life of this item, and how closely can we keep to that in developing the plan.
Well, I just wanted to note it, so I appreciate that, Patrick. Thank you. Other comments, board? I'm looking to the public too. I don't see any hands up, and our room is not quite as full as it was before the break. I don't see any. So in that case, I would look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
I beat you, Liz. To authorize a purchase in the amount of $90,690. Yeah, that's right.
Is that the correct amount?
Yeah.
And 42 cents.
And 42 cents. Yeah. I'm pausing for effect. Okay. $90,690.42 for 19 new APX 8000 radios for the Brattleboro Police Department.
Tim has made a motion to authorize a purchase in the amount of $90,690.42 for 19 new APX 8000 radios for the Brattleboro Police Department. Board members, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you, Chief, but I think you're going to stay up here for the next agenda item, which is new business agenda item E, pistol replacement, Brattleboro Police Department. Patrick again?
So this is a little bit less exciting in terms of the budgeting.
Yeah.
This acquisition was funded, I believe, in fiscal year 20. And so doesn't have the same sort of gymnastics in order to accomplish this transition. And I'll just pass it on to the chief to explain the purchase.
Chief.
This is the order. Sorry to interrupt. Can we have the other interpreter's camera turned on, please?
Oh, oops. Yep. Success. All right. Go ahead, Chief.
Yes. Okay. So I'm asking to purchase new duty pistols for the Brattleboro Police Department, because the pistols that we currently have are over 12 years old. They were slated to be replaced in 20, as Patrick talked about. And so the ones that we have now, they're showing the wear and the tear from constantly practicing, from weather, from being in holsters, as I laid out in my memo to you all. And also the fact that this is the perfect time that I feel to transition the department to a lighter, less expensive caliber, which would be a 9mm. At this time, we have 40 caliber weapons. So this would be the time to change over to that also, which will in the interim save my department as well as the town funds, because 40 caliber is harder to get, and it's because it's becoming antiquated. So a lot of departments are moving away from it. So it's becoming harder to get, which makes it more expensive to buy. So by this, with us switching over to 9mm, 9mm, smaller, lighter, and more available in the bulk that we need to purchase it in.
Great. Thank you very much, Chief. Board members, questions, comments? See any? Nope.
No.
Liz?
I'm supportive of this motion too. I think it's important to provide our police department with the support they need.
Thank you, Liz. I have a quick question, Chief. Yeah, so I think the question is more just about the move from the 40 caliber to the 9mm. Is that decision one that the department is in support of as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Almost every department is moving towards the 9mm for some of the reasons that I stated.
Yeah.
And I did not just make the decision for my department. I actually let everyone on the department actually fire a 9mm. The one that we chose, I had them all go out to the range and try it out. We borrowed one from the company, and we borrowed both models. And everyone got to make the decision. And they're actually all for it and pretty hyped about actually having a little bit of lighter weight on their hips.
Absolutely. I can imagine that, the kit already is a lot. And so a way to lighten it some. I really appreciate you sharing that information. I can only imagine that a decision about changing the firearm that an officer carries, which is an element of their safety, would be an important decision. And I'm glad that the department was involved in making that and that it's supported. And in that case, I'm fully in support of this.
Thank you.
So looking to no community comments there, and I don't see any other board members. So in that case, I'd look for a motion. Oh, Liz.
Thank you, Ian.
Yes.
I move to approve the purchase of S&W 99mm pistols. I thought it was 9.
It is.
It should be 9. Yeah.
9mm pistols with streamlined attachments from Jurek Brothers, and the purchase of holsters from AAA Police Supply in Dedham, Massachusetts, for the Brattleboro Police Department for a total of $23,706.78.
Excellent. Liz has made a motion to approve the purchase of S&W 9mm pistols with streamlight attachments from Jurek Brothers and the purchase of holsters from AAA Police Supply in Dedham, Massachusetts, for the Brattleboro Police Department for a total of $23,706.78. Board members, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Chief Hardy, thank you very much for the presentation.
And Chief, thank you for the larger font on the reports. I really, at the end of a meeting, it's great for our older eyes, some of our older eyes.
Yeah. It makes it a little easier for me to see what I'm writing.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you,
very much.
Good night.
Have a good night.
All right. So we move on to new business agenda item F, which is the announcement of committee vacancies. Do you want me to?
I feel like Jessica did a really good job with this last time.
I do feel like Jessica did a good
She's sick,
That's true.
Well, she's working through it.
Well, then Liz should do it.
How does that?
Speak for yourself there, Time.
I'll do it.
Okay, Daniel.
I
can
Jessica can do it. She's excited to do it.
Great, Jess.
Time heals all wounds.
So we just want the committee and the number of vacancies, right?
Yes, please. And just make sure to note if there's a any element. So like number 2 is an ex officio non-voting member.
All right. So first we have the Agricultural Advisory Board. There is 1 vacancy. The Agricultural Advisory Board also has 2 ex officio non-voting members that are open. The ADA Advisory Committee has 5 vacancies, and that is the entire size of that committee. So we need folks to be there so that that committee can operate. The Arts Committee has 1 vacancy. The Citizens Police Communications Committee has 2 vacancies. The Conservation Commission has 2 vacancies. The Design Review Committee alternate has 1 vacancy. The Development Review Board alternate has 2 vacancies. And those are both 1-year terms. Fence Viewer has 3 vacancies.
My goodness.
I know, what an exciting role. And they're only 1 year, terms, and it's fascinating work. The Hazard Mitigation Committee has 1 vacancy for a planning commission representative, has 1 vacancy for a select board member, and has 2 vacancies for community members. Ian. We've also got a vacancy for the inspector of lumber, shingles, and wood. It's a 1-year term. Senior Solutions Advisory Council has 1 or 2 vacancies. The Traffic Safety Committee, which came up today, has 1 vacancy. And there are 1 or 2 vacancies available for anyone who would like to be aware of coal, which right now is basically an honorary position, but we still appoint people to it.
Excellent. Jess, thank you very much. I'm actually surprised. I thought that we just appoint someone to the mayor.
Could have sworn.
Which one?
Where we had a resignation. Just too much pressure.
Yeah.
All right. Which is how you get coal.
That's how you make coal. That's right.
Okay. These are the right. Yeah. Okay.
But the Hazard Mitigation Committee select board member vacancy.
Yeah, I don't understand how that happened.
Well, we may have never
5 of us
decided to.
Yeah, wait a minute.
I could have sworn.
We do that at the meeting, I believe the meeting after the organizational meeting.
Correct.
To sort of assign appointments and kinds of things.
We may want to go back and ensure that there isn't already
There's no one on the committee at all, so I wonder if it's even because there are no members.
Okay.
So
oh, maybe it fell into like you had one of us
together
right when we have
every couple of years when it's time to review
which is what I did
mitigation plan.
years ago.
So it's not a body that meets with any kind of regularity. It comes together when the committee, it is sort of reformed when the committee is needed.
Yeah.
It's never, we could scramble and fill that committee, you're saying, and we wouldn't have to worry about it right now.
I feel like the most experienced person on the board would really be the best fit for that role.
The
person with the longest.
I will better inform my path as to the Hazard Mitigation Committee. I know I was on it at one
joining
point.
a committee that will ever meet.
Definitely was.
All right. We've got people who raising their hand over here.
I'm sorry, Jess.
Sorry, it's hard when.
Hi there. We did discuss, I think, in the transition with rescue that the hazard mitigation plan would need a little bit of updating. I don't know if that's committee work or staff work, but just to bring up the idea that maybe hazard mitigation committee is not totally passé right currently.
That's an excellent point. Yes.
And another point is, the climate change is always looming in the hazardous mitigation committee.
Right. Well, we have the local emergency management plan, right, which speaks to like some of that resilience,
which is what we reviewed on the hazard mitigation. Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's direct the town manager's office to please take a look at that and see whether we need to modifying the emergency plan needs the committee, or if we can do that staff work for Jessica's question.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. I think that is the completion of the agenda as warned, but as the careful listener will recall, a board member pulled an item from the consent agenda. So I know you all are following along and you've marked up your agenda as well at home. So we are now at new business agenda item 9G, which is the FY24 budget schedule. And as is select board member Tim Wessel, who pulled it, I would give him the floor.
Thank you. Did I miss an email?
No.
Or is this the first time we've looked at this?
Yep.
Yes.
Officially. Good. I'm glad because I've been missing a lot of emails. I apologize.
Why is that?
Just busy, Yeah. Stacking wood, etc. Delayed reaction there. So Tuesday, November 8th looks to be a busy one for me, and normally a busy one for our chair too. I'm not sure how you feel about that. We don't typically have a meeting on the election day.
It's not true.
Not
really?
true.
Yeah.
Well,
it just always just depends on.
We used to, going back a ways, young man, we used to always, we'd move it into the library, if anyone recalls, because this was being taken up with voting. This was before we did the American Legion partnership. I'll just say that I can't make that day, which might be fine. But I just wanted to be able to say, hey, would that really screw everything up if we
moved so currently Tuesday, November 8th is, I think this is an entirely correct thing to bring up now and talk about as we're looking at the agenda for the FY24 budget schedule. So I know it's proper. I'm just, that's the only thing I needed to talk about. So I was just going to read out. So for Tuesday, November 8th, it was going to be revenues, assessor's office, and planning. And so for people who maybe haven't seen the select board go through the budget process before, what this means is on this day, we look at the proposed FY24 budget for these areas of the Brattleboro municipal government. And so I guess the question would be to Patrick, do we feel like it would be possible to move those items to other days, especially because a couple of them aren't too heavy, to try to not have, so that's not a regular meeting. That would have been a special meeting anyways. Thoughts?
Sure. What would the board's preference be? Would you rather try and consolidate those items within the given dates, or extend the process and drag in December 13th?
Yeah, I want to, we can answer that question. I just want to speak to one thing to the board, because I don't know if the board supports this or not, but I'm going to make an argument for it. I've always kind of felt weird about having select board meetings on election nights anyways, because people are being asked to basically go between like two civic things at the same time, which is like watching the results and getting excited about an election, and then also like attending a select board meeting. And it's always kind of felt a little weird to me. And Tim is right that for me, I like to help run the polls, and the polls go later than when our select board meetings start. So I always have to leave early anyways. So I kind of like the proposed idea from Tim for that reason alone, but that's just my opinion. So I don't know where other people are falling. Liz.
I support the movement of that date. And I seem to recall there was some chatter about the 22nd as well.
Yeah, that one now is going to be a heavy one. It looks like to me. Yeah.
Chatter as in, let's not have it on the 22nd.
Yeah, just because
so close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's just that holiday week, and again, it's about making sure people can attend, can speak and be able to be heard. And this time of year is tricky. So I think the board we could consider this if you wanted to look at the 22nd as well. Liz, thank you for bringing it up.
May I?
Daniel.
I would rather not combine. I would rather push out a little bit. I recall our last budget season, like we went all through November and December.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yes.
I mean, I guess we'll have our regular meetings in December. Yeah.
Well, that's what this is doing, right?
Not really. No, we kind of just get.
Just follow-ups.
Yeah. Because in my memory actually is that all of our follow-up happened in January. Like, so anything that we identified as something that like we wanted to bring up around second time, we did in the January month and not in December. So.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I'm less skeptical about moving the 22nd. I don't see that as being too disruptive.
Okay.
Unless somebody has a personal problem with it.
Well,
the fact that it's 3 days from Thanksgiving doesn't feel that disruptive to me, to the public anyway.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we dance around here is that we're required to have 3 board members present for a meeting to happen, right? And like we try to accommodate everybody's schedules, you know, but we're not, you know, sometimes if we have to schedule something and it means that one person can't make it, then that's just kind of how it goes.
Totally.
I think like if we could sort of bump and not have a meeting on the 8th, I think like, you know, in the past, right, we've been in elections ourselves. We either like, you know, running for office or like helping with the work of the election, and you're sitting here and that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And this November 8th election is going to be a big deal. So if we could free up that night, but I'd rather not squish things together because I think it's important that we give adequate time and for, you know, proper deliberation of all this budget stuff.
Yeah.
Even if it means that we end up having a couple of meetings that only last an hour or an hour and a half. Imagine that.
Forbid.
Rather than 5 hours.
So we're leaning towards just bumping to make revenues assessor office planning the 15th.
Well,
I think I would leave it to Patrick to decide whether it would make more sense to like bump them all down one, or if there's other reasons why these are on certain days, and maybe it would make more sense to like literally like take revenues, assessors, and planning and put it as like December 13th. Yeah.
Although you want to know revenues before you know.
So if I'm hearing clear guidance, which I think I'm hearing.
We haven't heard from Jess at all. That was the only.
She was nodding her head.
I was nodding my head for sure. Yeah, I think we should not do it on the 8th. I'm fine with it on the 22nd. I think that that's fine. And if we have a general overview on the 1st, I don't see a reason why revenues would have to come before anything else.
Okay. Do we feel comfortable letting Patrick smith this, do his magic, and then have this brought back to the board at the next select board meeting on the consent agenda? And if we feel good about it, let it move through, and if not, pull it.
Yeah, I don't really recall even having this formalized of it.
It was
in the
last
past. Really?
Yeah.
It has been.
And it was on
It's
the
also
consent
like
agenda last year.
letting the public know.
Well, of course,
we're going to be
of course, but I thought it was previously handled just as a press release and not actually on our agenda.
Yeah,
as calendar stuff. But
I guess it was.
Okay.
Does that sound good to the board?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll just make one more. I just want to reiterate this for future boards when they're thinking about this, making these agendas. I'm really glad that Tim brought this up. I think that it is an important statement to not put select board meetings on election days, because the polls are open till 7 and our select board meetings start at 6:15. And so you're essentially forcing residents to make a decision between, potentially making a decision between voting and coming to a select board meeting. And I just, I've never liked that. And so I'm glad that we're not doing it for the budget season. I think that in the future, we should consider that for town meeting day and other, midterms and things like that, just for the future consideration.
Excellent.
Well, Tim doesn't need to listen to that, but I'm listening.
Yeah. All right, I'll get off my soapbox on that. So did this actually require a vote? Because it was on the consent agenda, so I don't know.
It seems to be resoundingly rejected, and
it's rejected as is. So.
I shall bring back a better calendar of fiscal 24 budget meetings, and the board can take a look at it next week.
Excellent. In that case, I think, board, I would just look for one more motion.
Oh,
Jess sneezed, and Liz.
Let me interpret that sneeze for you. It's a motion to adjourn.
Liz has made a motion to adjourn. Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries 5-0. Feel better, Jess.
Yep.
Thank you so much, BCTV. Thank you to our interpreters. Jessica, thank you so much for running the computer. And thank you very much, Patrick.